Hey there, I'm David, and I want to show you a great new feature that we just added to Quicktype. If you don't know, Quicktype is a tool for inferring the type of sample JSON data and generating the types and marshalling code you need to read and write that data in the programming language of your choice. It's an open source project. We have a website, quicktype.io, where you can play with the tool. So for example, Pokedex is one of my favorite samples. So here's an array of all of the Pokemon. I guess it's actually an object with an array within it. And if we were writing an iOS app, here is the Swift for structs and convenience functions for decoding this JSON string data into a typed model. And if we're not using Swift, if we're using C++, and we're not parsing Pokemon, we're parsing a Spotify album, here's the code for doing that. You get the idea. So these are typed structs in C++, and here are from and to JSON functions in C++ for marshalling untyped data into typed data. But we also have a CLI, and if you're going to use Quicktype for real work, you should probably install the CLI and integrate it into your build process. So you get the CLI with npm, the node package manager. We'd love to distribute the CLI as a statically compiled binary in case anyone wants to submit that pull request. I'm also going to get a utility called watch that will help me for this demo. So once we install Quicktype, let me just make this terminal larger. We can type Quicktype to see its help documentation. If we run Quicktype with no arguments, we get some samples. So for example, we can generate C# code for parsing the latest Bitcoin block by giving it this blockchain data URL. Let's open it in our browser just so we can see what we can just curl it right here. So if we curl that, we can see there's a JSON document. Let's in fact save that latest block.json so we can open it. And let's just reformat it. So yeah, here's our JSON document, and Quicktype looks at it and sees, oh, hash is a string, time is an int, block index is an int, height is an int, tx indexes is an array of integers. And it generates C# code because that's what the sample was for parsing all of that. But let's not do C#. Let's do TypeScript. So I'm just going to do Quicktype latest block.json, and we're going to output it as types.ts, and the top level class is going to be called latest block. So TypeScript is a typed superset of JavaScript. And we actually have some extra conversion code in here that I want to omit. So I'm going to say, just give me the types, just types rather. So there. Quicktype has looked at our JSON sample data, figured out the type of all of these properties, and generated a TypeScript interface for us to use in our program. I'll open these side by side just so we can see them. Now here's where it gets kind of interesting. The new feature that we've introduced is the ability to Quicktype an entire directory of sample data. So originally Quicktype he takes one input file and outputs one output file. But in a real program, you have lots of JSON payloads, lots of different pieces of data from different services. So I'm going to make a directory called samples and move latest block.json under samples. So you can see over here in my sidebar, I've got a sample directory with JSON. And the new command is Quicktype. Instead of giving it a JSON file, I'm going to give it this directory of samples. And I'm just going to say output it as types.ts, same file. And again, I want just the types. I'm going to run it, and we get exactly the same result. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So I'm going to use this watch command, which takes a command and a directory, and it just reruns that command if this directory ever changes. So I'll open these side by side. So we've got our TypeScript created by Quicktype on the right-hand side, and here is our data for the latest Bitcoin block. And just to show you that this is working, you can see that block index has an underscore and becomes a property with the same name in our TypeScript interface, but Spaces are legal in JSON values, so I'll change that underscore to a space, and you can see Quicktype is pretty smart about legal identifiers. So it's regenerated our code, and it makes sure that block index is in quote marks to be valid TypeScript. And if we were to change this number to a object, if height specifies some sort of unit, for example, obviously these aren't physical heights. I don't know actually very much about what height means in Bitcoin, but Quicktype understands that height is no longer just a number, it's actually an object with its own property called CM, and that has a number. So yeah, Quicktype, you get it, that's what Quicktype does. So we're just going to revert to that, and we can change this name back. So to show you the power of this new feature, I need to add some new sample data. So I'm actually going to delete our Bitcoin sample and create a new file, and I'm going to call it person.json because this will just be simpler. And we're going to get some errors because it's quick typing intermediate values. But let's open this arrangement again. So we've got a person, which is an empty object, and let's give it a name. David, that's me, and a lucky number. And 10,000 sounds pretty lucky to me. So we have a person with a name and a lucky number. The name's a string. The number is obviously a number. And here's the equivalent TypeScript for that. And let's give me a pet. So a pet, let's make it more interesting. Pets. Let's say a pet has a color, a green pet, and a kind of pet. It's a turtle, obviously, if it's green. And it has a weight. Turtles weigh about 200, I'd say. So I have an array of pets, and Quicktype is going to QuickType the file, and person will get an array of pets. Quicktype's pretty smart about figuring out what the name of these things are based on this property, so it just guesses that it's called pet. And so pets is an array of pets where each pet has kind, color, and weight. It's doing exactly what we want. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I think I keep saying that, but I'll show you. I'm going to create a new file called sample data, and let's call it a pet store, petstore.json. And that's not valid syntax. Okay, I'm making a very minimal pet store here, and I'm going to take this pet definition with me. So let's say a pet store has a location, and that's like a street, 123 Rabbit Way, and that's a city. It is Pettsville, and a state. It's in PT state. So let's save that. So we've got this new pet store value in our program, and Quicktype knows that now our program consists of persons with pets, and pet stores, and pet stores just have locations which have a city, state, and street. But here's where it gets super cool. Let's say that pet stores are not in the location. Pet stores also have something called inventory. And inventories look like this. Oh, I didn't copy. The pet store has a red rabbit that weighs 50. You put a comma here. Thank you, VS Code. This pet store is kind of low on stock. It also has a blue baboon. I don't know if that's how you spell baboon. And baboons are heavy. Don't tell them I said that, and we'll save it. Now, what is Quicktype going to do with this information? Unfortunately, it's renamed our pets to inventory. So some room for improvement here, but the important, let's just change it to make it work. Pets. So a pet store has pets as well. It worked, but it wasn't exactly as sexy as I wanted it to be. Now, what's interesting here is Quicktype realizes that a person has an array of pets, where a pet is this interface, and a pet store also has pets, where a pet is also the same interface. So what's happening is Quicktype generates all the code for all of these data types, but also looks at all of the types defined within them, or the values rather. And if the values are compatible, it will unify them into the same type. Because if you're using all the sample data in your program, and if a person has pets and a pet store has pets, you might want to buy a pet from the pet store and give it to a person. And if the type is the same, you can do that without doing some extra conversion. So that's what's cool about this feature. Not only does it let you Quicktype a bunch of different pieces of data for your program as separate types, but if Quicktype determines that there's some overlapping structure between your samples, it will create unified types that are used in both. Another example is if you're creating a music album or you're querying the Spotify API, if you've got an album value and a playlist value, they both have tracks in them. And you don't want album tracks and playlist tracks, you just want tracks. Okay, great. So let me show you two more tricks. One thing you can do is we also support, so I just copied a URL and I'm going to paste it into samples weather.url. We also support a file format that just ends in URL and contains just a single URL. And Quicktype will download the data at that URL and Quicktype it. This is nice if you want to incorporate into your build process live data. Your build will fail if the data source, the live data source that you're Quicktyping, changes its schema in a way that's incompatible with your program. So that's pretty cool. And you can see, we can just declare let w of type weather, just so you can see the auto completion. And now we can do w.query. This is kind of a weird structure. Results, channel, astronomy, sunrise. So we were able to use auto-completion right away just by pointing Quicktype at this URL and letting it generate this type for us. Finally, sometimes your data is not complete or you have multiple samples of the same data. So instead of a person, let's delete this person.json file. And I'm going to make a directory called person. Samples person, and I'm going to create some empty objects in samples person, and we have David and Mark, my colleague. Does that work? Great. Two empty objects. I've been called worse. Okay, so here's our types. And we can see, oh, here's our person with no information in it. And I'm just going to delete these other guys just so we can get some clarity. So we want samples, weather, and pet store. Bye, guys. Quicktype is going to read Quicktype, and we just have a person model now that's empty. And let me open David. So sometimes, like I said, your data might be incomplete. So if I have a name, David, and I have a favorite number. Before I was lucky, now it's favorite, and it's 10,000. And so if Mark has an additional property, let's say he has a mortgage. Yes, Mark has a mortgage. Silly Mark. And a mortgage has a, I don't know, number of payments. 100 payments on this mortgage. Obviously, I'm not a mortgage expert. What we'll see now is Quicktype realizes that there are two samples. Well, yeah, it's right here. It sees that there are two samples of a person in our program, and one has a mortgage and one does not. So it indicates that in the type system that this is optionally not present. If I go and add a mortgage to my other sample, you'll see, why is this highlighted? Quicktype looks at the samples again and removes the question mark because all of our sample data, which is considered authoritative by Quicktype, the mortgage is present in every person. So that's the new feature of Quicktyping a directory of sample data. It lets you Quicktype multiple types of data, unifying their substructures if common types are detected. It lets you Quicktype live data by Quicktyping files with just URLs in them. And it also lets you provide multiple samples for the same type to make sure that you cover all of your bases. So give this feature a try. We just released it yesterday, and let me know how it goes. Thanks.